fight for our space. And we want to appreciate the support that we're receiving from our partners, Keystone First and Pico, for making this special 3-hour broadcast possible. So hopefully we'll have our next guest. We actually had to lose one of our guests. It was supposed to come on earlier on at 1 p.m. So we're waiting on the next guest who hopefully will arrive shortly. We are coming at you live on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, and WURD app. So we can also present to you on WURD TV. I'm now on Zoom. So we are coming at you live on Zoom. Just having a bit of Zoom issues, but we got those sorted out. So we are now live. In the meantime, why don't I go ahead while I'm waiting on our next guest. We'll just open up the phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, here on our special Earth Day broadcast, The Fight for Our Space. We have a number of guests who are lined up for the next 2.5 hours. So we're going to have a discussion about the need to preserve, to protect our spaces, to protect the lives that are in those spaces, and prioritizing the environment, prioritizing everything that's happening with our environment as the number one issue afflicting our community today. Earth Day is very much a Black day. Let me repeat that. Earth Day is very much a Black day. So this day, when you hear about Earth Day, and we've been doing this exercise for a few decades now, Earth Day, and sometimes it feels very remote, it feels very distant and irrelevant from the struggles and the conditions that we go through as a Black community. No, those struggles, those conditions are very much environmental issues and struggles and conditions. And so we need to tackle them. We should be the leaders of those issues because we're on the front line of them. So Earth Day is very much a day for us to reflect on and to also plan and mobilize on as well. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, here on our Fight for Our Space. That's why we were very intentional in that title and what we're calling the Fight for Our Space, because we deal with so many assaults on our space. We are displaced from our spaces. Our spaces are polluted. Our spaces are trashed. Also, it starts with us too, where we have to have more respect and also exercise better stewardship over our spaces, and ensuring, like, if we want governments, we want other communities, we want other people to respect our spaces and to stop attacking our spaces, then we also have to show that to ourselves, more importantly, and to others, that we care about our spaces. So it's also an internal struggle as well, particularly when we're looking at issues like, for example, trash. So the trash issue doesn't just creep up on its own. That is an issue that happens from a number of different angles and spaces and pathways. There's trash that gets dumped on us externally, such as pollution, or people or companies who dump their trash in our communities. And then, of course, there's the trash that we deal with internally, the trash that we either dump on our own streets or we don't pick up. And so we have to address that. And we have to, find a better way out of that, find better solutions. So we're still waiting on our next guest. Hopefully they'll be joining us shortly. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. We were expecting Maurice Sampson of Clean Water Action and Niche Recycling Incorporated. So he was supposed to be joining us. So we're waiting on him right now at this moment. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. And well, there is some breaking news that's coming out of Washington, D.C. while we're on it. And when we're talking about the issue of displacement, some of you may have heard just over the past hour or so that the U.S. House of Representatives just approved a bill to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. So that just passing the House. So that will go to the Senate. It's the second time that the House of Representatives approved a bill for DC statehood or statehood for the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. This is the first time, this is the second time that they've done this in just 2 years. Of course, clearly it's facing an uphill battle in the Senate, but I know some people are excited about that. Some people out there, some commentators also making this a very black issue. It's a black issue, all right, but not in the way that it seems. There was a time when the District of Columbia, when Washington, D.C., which some people out there used to remember or recall as fondly Chocolate City, it was 71% black. Washington, D.C. was 71% black. This is back in 1970. By 2010, Washington, D.C. Dropped below 50% in its black population. That was by 2010. Now it's at 46% black. So, it begs the question, particularly when we're looking at the statehood issue, because a lot of people have been talking about it, and they've been talking about it as if it's a pro-black or black agenda issue. Is DC statehood really a pro-black issue? Because, it's like, it seems like the closer we get closer to statehood in DC, when there's fewer and fewer black people in Washington, D.C. So, it's like by the time you get to D.C. statehood, they'll kick all the black people out. And so, but I think that the passage of this bill warrants that conversation about gentrification and displacement. And once again, goes back to that larger, very relevant Earth Day discussion about that battle, that fight for our space. Let me go to Brother Mike out of Ohio, who's calling us and joining us here for our special Earth Day conversation. Brother Mike, how are you doing, sir?
I'm okay, Brother Charles. I wanted to point this out in regards to marijuana and this whole medical marijuana frenzy, if you will. And just from an Earth Day standpoint, it is an Earth gift from God. I am very concerned as it continues to go through legislation. Once it hits the stock market and companies, invest and bid and that sort of thing, right. It's over with. It's no longer. We can fool ourselves if we want. It will no longer be used as a very serious healing mechanism, and it will be polluted. It's probably polluted now, unfortunately, coming from the earth, because the earth is very polluted, but it will be more toxic. And, the one thing that the corporate people definitely learn from different communities is they know how to spike and stretch stuff. So I know that the corporate community is up on, quote, unquote, how maybe some people say, well, this is exotic and whatever. In fact, in some of these medical marijuana stores, they have this a different name, not a street name, but it's sort of the same thing. So, again, from an Earth Day standpoint, man, my whole focus is that. And I hope you have somebody that comes on and comment and get some commentary around, right. The whole marijuana thing. It's used. Right,
cannabis, right. And cannabis, I mean, there's the dual, you raised two good points, Brother Mike, real quick, because I want you to finish it. You raised two good points. No, I didn't have any guests on today to talk about, specifically about cannabis equity, but in fact, I did just moderate a discussion last Friday for the Council of State Governments entitled Cannabis Equity. And we had a state representative who, up in Connecticut, black state legislator, who's introduced a cannabis equity bill, or a bill that forces equity in that cannabis industry conversation. Robin Porter out of Connecticut, and then we had a couple of cannabis equity advocates who were on that panel as well. So it's Council of State Governments Eastern Regional Conference. But long and short, no, you're absolutely right, because there's two struggles. It's one, it's just ensuring that burgeoning industry, which is going to be about $100 billion by 2030, is inclusive, and that we're benefiting from it, because we were prosecuted and punished for participating in it while it was illegal, right? So it's like, right. But there's a lot of barriers to entry, to become entrepreneurs and innovators in that space. And really, I mean, if you look at the history, or I was schooled on the history of cannabis prohibition. It kind of started out because we started out kind of figuring out ways to grow an economy out of that. So they figured out a way to shut it down and to make it illegal. So there's one, but then two, like how pure is it? Like how pure is it really? Like how really much from the earth is it? So I think you raised two really good issues. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's not going to be pure because it's like anything else. It's going to be commercialized and it's not for our benefits. And where I applaud the cannabis advocates in our community, at the end of the day, a lot of it's financial. I have not heard a lot of conversation around healing, but I've heard interweavings of it. But we're not going to make any money off of that. We're not going to make any money off of that. And yeah, that's my main concern. And as far as people getting locked up, and I hear this as party advocacy. Well, we'll let everybody else out of jail that we locked up. Well, you locked them up. And in some cases, you lock some people up for 3 strikes, they're out, and they've been in jail for 10, 20 years. So letting them out as a part of the whole medical, the Cannabis Act and all that, you took years of life away from people. You can't repair that. So, yeah, hopefully you'll have some experts come in and talk about the cannabis piece.
Absolutely. If we don't do it today, Brother Mike, I assure you we will, because it helped. I'm not an expert on that conversation. I will first admit that. So I don't profess to be like deeply immersed in the cannabis equity issue, but it definitely piqued my interest a bit more when I had to moderate that conversation this past Friday. And so, I'm paying a lot more attention to it. It's not something I'm into necessarily. I am very curious about and very intrigued by the economics of it and the equity components of it. So, it's something we do definitely need to talk about. I appreciate the way you just raised it, though, and you're absolutely right. It is one of those many Earth Day issues. So, Brother Mike, thanks so much. Please be safe up there in Ohio.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right.
Yes,
take care. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate folks calling in. Peace. Peace back at you. Let me go to Brother Spread Love in Philly. He's calling in for a reality check. Brother Spread Love, what's up? Oh, Brother Spread Love. Okay, maybe he'll call back. Let me go to Woody out of Philly, calling in for a reality check. Well, not a reality check, but our special Earth Day coverage here. Woody, how are you doing, sir?
Well, actually, I tried to get in on reality check as well. I wasn't able to do that, but I got you now.
We got you now.
To spread love.
All right,
and
exactly.
He continues to spread love because that's what we need to do more of.
Right.
To spread that love. We haven't done that. I heard you talking toward the end of your program about the educational structure. And we both know that they're going to run from that. However, if it's your right to vote, think about this, then it should, if it's really a right, then you should be able to vote, right?
Right.
So if you can't read, then you can't vote.
Right.
There's a right missing here.
Right, there is.
As it relates to the inferior education that you received in the inner city public schools.
And that's a 14th Amendment. That's a 14th Amendment issue too.
Yeah.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? If you like to structure things. Most people who can't do the reading properly or didn't get the proper education don't know how to structure something. I heard you saying you like to put it down and structure it. Well, we're going to need you to show how to structure. But the idea I just shared with you is truly against the law if the person can't vote.
That's right.
So you see where I'm coming from.
Right, right. The failure of, it's amazing that, well, at least I'm not aware of, Woody. I am amazed. I am stunned. I'm somewhat stupefied that no one in Philadelphia has sued the Philadelphia public school system for the high rate of illiteracy in this city.
Yes.
I'll say that again. Maybe somebody's out there. They did it in Detroit. Remember, they just did it in Detroit, and they had to settle that case. So they have more sense up there in Detroit that I guess that we have in Philadelphia. But they literally they made it a federal case. It almost got to the Supreme Court, and they had to settle it. They were suing the Detroit public school system for lack of education, for lack of it, because there was a 14th Amendment issue, and they almost set they kind of have already set a real precedent here, because if you're keeping people from reading or learning to read, right, in especially in a public school system, you are keeping them away. It's another layer of discrimination, keeping them away from employment prospects. You know, it's basically, it's employment discrimination, because if they can't read, they can't get a job.
That's right.
So it's like, I'm amazed that no one has like say, you know what, this is really bad. We need to sue the Philadelphia School District. It's just because the high rates of illiteracy in the city are just so high. I'm sorry, go ahead and finish up, Woody.
No, I want to finish up, but what I wanted to get to the point was, you are right on point. This is one of the reasons, and again, the structure in which you work is different than the structure of a person that may be not as organized. But when you put two heads together, you see what I'm saying? Then you have a huddle. That's what they do in football and all that. You have to have a minute off to huddle to make your plan. Well, we need to make a plan, and I got the outline. I just need to have your input. So we need to talk off the air. I'm going to leave my number again. Hopefully,
we do. No, that's I've got it. I do need to reach out to you, but I don't want you to put the number out over here. But I do have it. So I need to. Man. It is on my list. To reach back to you. I will.
All right. Good enough, man. Thanks a lot. And
thank you, brother. All right.
Tell Mike on you.
You should. Yeah, you should. Come on, man. That's fine.
Later.
All right. Talk to you soon, brother. Thanks so much for calling. We're going to take just a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue. We're going to start kicking off and I do apologize once again for the technical issues at the very beginning, but we're going to come right back. We have Emily Shapira, who is CEO of the Philadelphia Energy Authority. We heard quite a bit about the Philadelphia Energy Authority in just this recent session of City Council, which just ended not too long ago during City Council Live. So we have Emily Shapira to talk a little bit about that, to expound on that here on our Earth Day coverage, our special Earth Day coverage EcoWord broadcast on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We'll be right back.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives. With vaccines, we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
The Philadelphia Flyers are partnering with the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium to help end the COVID-19 pandemic. Philadelphians are in this together, so protect yourself, protect others, and get vaccinated. Visit the Leocore Center at Temple University this Thursday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. to get vaccinated with the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium and the Philadelphia Flyers. Win this one for Philadelphia. Take your shot. Visit PhiladelphiaFlyers.com for more information.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit WURDradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
All right, welcome back to our EcoWord Special Earth Day broadcast here on WURD. Go to ecoword.com for more information. Also want to thank our supporters, our partners, Keystone First and Pico. Welcome to the fight for our space. And, you know, also imagining a new kind of space, a clean energy space. And that's why we have Emily Shapiro on with us. She is CEO of the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Go to philaenergy.org. Do I have that right, Emily? Philaenergy.org for more information about the Philadelphia Energy Authority. For those who don't know by now, Emily, what is the Philadelphia Energy Authority, briefly?
So Charles, we're a government entity. We were created by City Council and the mayor back in 2011. And our focus is really on building a robust, equitable, clean energy economy for Philadelphia. In 2016, with the leadership of the council president, Darrell Clark, we launched the Philadelphia Energy Campaign, which is $1 billion investment over 10 years in energy efficiency and clean energy work to create 10,000 jobs for Philadelphians. So we've been working on that now for a little over 4 years. We've launched over $167 million in projects, created about 1,700 jobs, and we're really excited to share that we are on track to meet our $1 billion goal, 10,000 job goal by 2025, so a little bit earlier than we expected.
10,000 clean energy jobs in the city of Philadelphia by what was it, in the next 20 years? By 20?
It's a 10-year goal, so 2026 is our deadline.
2026, it's almost there. So $10 billion, right? And
$1 billion, 10,000 jobs.
10,000 jobs. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's ambitious. And there was a lot of conversation just in council. There was a resolution, kind of congratulating or celebrating the fact that you've expanded the solar infrastructure in the city, or you've been involved in some very ambitious efforts to expand solar as a leading clean energy source for all residents. So talk about how, however, we're expanding solar beyond just middle-class homeowners, because that's always been a concern of mine. Like, okay, fine, we're getting solar panels on middle-class homes, but I'm envisioning a future where solar is everywhere, where like homes and apartment buildings, everyone is tapped into a solar grid.
Absolutely. We have the same vision. And, I think historically, you're exactly right. Solar has been available to those who can afford to pay for it up front. And that has really changed over the last few years. The cost of solar has come down 70 to even 90% in some markets. And we've done a lot of work with City Council and with partners and collaborators in Philadelphia to drive down those soft costs and make sure we have a really well-trained solar workforce here, so that there are lots of folks available as solar companies are expanding. I'll talk a little bit about what happened in council this morning, which is that they focused on our solar savings grant program, which we're incredibly grateful for the recognition. So over the last 4 years, we've been running Solarize Philly, which is a residential rooftop solar discount program. Okay. And we've had over 6,500 households across the city express interest, and over 750 actually put solar on their roofs through that program. Okay. And we've realized as we've done that has catered more than we'd like to see towards, majority white folks and higher income households. And so we've really focused on how can we make sure that we have diversity in that program, and both of race and neighborhood, but also of income. So the Solar Savings Grant Program provides a subsidy to folks to help put solar on their roof. So we provide about half the cost of the solar, plus a low-cost loan for the balance. We provide long-term loan loss reserves, so not to get too wonky, but that basically allows us to not have credit underwriting that's based on your FICO score or your debt-to-income ratio. So even folks with different sorts of credit are able to participate as long as they're paying their utility bills on time.
Got it.
And so that's been the way we've underwritten that program. And we have a ton of partners who have helped us get this done, from discounts from the installer, Solar States, to low-cost loans from the National Energy Improvement Fund. We're partnered with Centennial Parkside CDC, who helped raise grant funds for that. So it's been a whole coalition to make it work, but we're really proud to share that we've got 50 homes that are moving forward right now to put solar on their roofs from 26 different zip codes in the city. And those are all low and moderate income homeowners. Everybody's below 80% of area median income. And about half of those folks are below 50% of area median.
So that's a real good start. And how do we get to the point? So those are just homes. Those are folks who own a home. They're in control of their own home and own space for the most part. So is there a plan or is there a vision? What are you all looking at as far as, okay, how do we encourage landlords? How do we encourage, and there's a lot of corporate landlords now in Philly, and that's increasing the first big like recession pre-pandemic, but how do you encourage like solar on apartment complexes, because half the city's population rents?
Totally. I'll put that into two categories: things we've done and things we need to do. On the things we've done side, City Council has worked hard to pass a number of pieces of legislation that fix some kind of zoning or regulatory requirement that make it harder to do that. So at the city level, we've done a lot of things to make that easier. Where things still need to happen is at the state level. Right now, Pennsylvania does not allow community solar, which lets anyone, whether you're a renter or a homeowner, buy into a solar array and reap those benefits. And so that is something that has to change. And PECO is historically been opposed to community solar, but I think they're sort of coming around. So that would do a lot to get renters involved. And then I think sort of the even next step beyond that is to really create environments where big landlords, particularly of larger apartment buildings, are able to do this. And so we've launched a program called CPACE, which is a clean energy financing tool that folks can use for commercial buildings. And so far, multifamily buildings have been excluded from that, but we have a bill in the state legislature right now to change that. So so we're working on it, but certainly we have a long way to go to provide good solar options for renters.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that bill too, and I know that there are efforts in the state legislature to push for community solar, which is just solar's. I mean, we already have situations throughout the world, even in some places in the country, where whole small cities are connected to a solar grid, are being powered by solar. I think even just right across the bridge in Delaware, I think there's an example. I remember driving past like a solar farm that's powering a town in Delaware. So like they're doing it in Delaware, why can't they do it in Philly? And so talk about why, because when people hear solar, maybe there are people out there, they might tune out. Well, that's not my issue. No, it is your issue. Like community solar can actually, it can have a future where we have cheaper energy. And then also it's just cheaper all around, because then we've knocked out all those accumulating public health costs from just being so reliant on fossil fuels for so long.
Exactly. And, I'm sure you don't need me to say this, but we talk often about how climate change affects Black and brown communities first and most. And, the sort of legacy of an over-reliance on fossil fuels is that those communities have higher rates of asthma and all sorts of other diseases. Folks that have lived along the fence line of the refinery for decades have really felt the impacts of that pollution. Right. And so, it's all of our problem to make sure that we are cleaning up both the utility grid here and local power production. And I'll say, the city of Philadelphia signed a big power purchase agreement a couple of years ago. It's still in construction, that project, but it'll power 22% of the municipal footprint for government from this one solar array that's based out in Adams County near Gettysburg. So, we're making moves a little bit here to get Philadelphia to have more access to greener power, but there's still so much work to be done there. And I think the last thing I'll say about that is just that, you got it right. Solar can be cheaper than what you're paying to PECO. And if you're going to pay it monthly anyway, you might as well invest in your own property and in your own resources to be able to make your own power rather than paying that same amount to PECO. So for our program, there's a 15-year loan on it. You'll still save about 20% off your PECO bill from day one. But then, going forward, you'll have this small solar loan for 15 years. And after that, you own it. Solar lasts for 25 plus years on your roof. So so after that, you're at pretty much free electricity.
Yeah. The other piece too of this, Emily, is the economics, the workforce development, career, innovation, entrepreneur opportunities in the clean energy sector. Because I love that we're having more recognition of, more awareness around environmental justice. I want that to translate into environmental economics, right? Because if we're going to be on the front lines of being the most disproportionately impacted by calamities like climate crisis, okay, well, we should be on the front lines and getting the most benefit economically out of the solution to climate crisis. And so talk about that, expound on that a little bit more about how we ensure that heavily marginalized, environmentally impacted communities are also benefiting economically from these burgeoning, these new clean energy. Like, how are we getting more people trained, hired to do these clean energy jobs, but also to become leaders and managers and executives in the clean energy economy. I want to see more like, for example, more like Black innovators in solar energy and Black workers. And, so I want to see more of that.
Amen. Well, let me give you a couple of pieces of data because you're right on. First, solar installer is the fastest growing occupation in the country. That's also true of Pennsylvania, and it's one of the fastest growing jobs in Philadelphia as well. The latest report from the Solar Foundation shows that only 8% of the U.S. solar workforce is Black. Among senior executives, 88% are white and 80% are men, with only 2% of folks being Black at those senior executive levels. So exactly to your point. And I'll give you one more statistic, which is that 28% of Black solar employees say they found their jobs through word of mouth or their own networks, compared to 44% of white people. And I say that because, that is the step that we need to get to. It's one thing to do job training and skills development, which we are doing and have done in Philadelphia. We have one of the best trained solar workforces in the country through our Bright Solar Futures program with PowerCore. OIC Philadelphia also runs a training program for solar, which is fantastic, as does the Energy Coordinating Agency. So Philly has this really well-trained group now of diverse young people and adults that are ready to take these jobs. But we need to build those networks too, so that they can be connected to jobs more easily. And that's really been the work of the Energy Authority. We put together a citywide solar job training collaborative so that we can make sure that all of those organizations that are doing that training have those connections to employers, and really, spreading that word far and wide. So as employers in the region are looking for well-trained employees, they know to come to our training programs and hire those young people into that field. And solar is really an industry where you can climb that ladder pretty easily. Once you're in, you're in. And so you start as an installer and can sort of grow into all sorts of different roles, including that sort of entrepreneurship and executive level. So we're excited about the work that's happening. Of course, there's a lot more that needs to be done. You can see it by those stats. There's a lot of room for improvement.
There is, and I appreciate you sharing that. So people can go to phillyenergy.org, learn more about those programs, how to get trained, for example, in solar installation, and then get plugged in. Like you said, like once you're in that solar industry, that solar network, that solar track, then you're in. And so let's definitely encourage more of that, a much more inclusive, equitable industry, and everyone's benefiting from that. Everyone. So and that's definitely something I like to see. Emily, I gotta let you go, unfortunately, but we gotta have you back. This is really worthwhile. Emily Shapira is the CEO of the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Go to phillyenergy.org for more information, at Philly Energy on social media, on Twitter, more specifically where I roll. And she's been joining us here on our special EcoWord Earth Day Fight for Our Space broadcast here on WURD. Emily, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles. Take care.
Take care. All right. We'll be talking again. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be right back here on EcoWord.
At Bank of America, we believe in the power of collaboration to create jobs and fuel economic opportunity. That's why we're working with local organizations to help people get the skills they need and build a growing pipeline of talent.
I'm Jim Dever, Bank of America Greater Philadelphia Market President. Our partnership with Philadelphia Youth Network is just one way we're taking action to help more members of our community. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Word family, the Go to Know campaign for colon cancer is up and running. Go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. It's that simple. Click Go to Know and get your test today.
What's up, Philly? It's Solomon Jones. The world is inching back to normalcy, but our approach to educating our children may never be the same. Commonwealth Charter Academy, or CCA, has nearly 20 years of experience providing a flexible, stable online education in the comfort of your home. Enroll today at ccaeducate.me. Here are the benefits to your children and your family. 1. World-class education and accredited lesson plans streamed directly into your home at no cost to you. 2, laptops, headphones, and high-speed internet access, all provided at no cost to you. 3, a learning environment completely free from classroom risks like bullying and other distractions. CCA has been in our community long before this health crisis and will continue to faithfully serve students and families well into the future. Join the more than 2,500 students from Philly who already attend CCA. Enroll now at ccaeducate.me.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
Okay, welcome back to EcoWord. It is our special Earth Day broadcast, the fight for our space, pollution, climate change, zoning, gentrification, and illness from bad air, water, and soil. We were talking about the direct attacks on the spaces we live and we try to thrive in, and what we can do about it, what we can do about fending up for ourselves against those attacks. Those attacks happen on a regular basis, on a daily, minute-by-minute basis. So we've put together this special EcoWord Earth Day broadcast. We do that regularly here on WURD through our EcoWord initiative. You know I do it always, daily on Reality Check WURD. We're always talking about something dealing with the environment, with the spaces that we live in. Also want to send a thanks to Keystone First and also Pico for making this broadcast possible. Joining us now from Chester, PA, is Zulene Mayfield, longtime advocate, activist in that fight. She's on the front lines of that fight for our space, a warrior out of Chester, and leader, founder of Chester Residents. Go to chesterresidents.org for more information. In fact, they have a major rally, a major march that's coming up this Saturday in Chester, because there's just a lot we were talking about this earlier, just not too long ago, Zulene, about how Chester is the #1 garbage dumping ground or site in the nation, one of the largest in the nation. And it's not just regionally in terms of Philly region, but mid-Atlantic too, just so many different states and cities dumping trash into Chester. And that's a big public health problem. What's Saturday all about, the protest that you all are planning for Saturday?
Well, we are not celebrating a traditional Earth Day. Mm-hmm. Because we feel as though Earth Day, it's kind of hard to celebrate Earth Day when you are in a battle. Mm-hmm. Earth Day is, okay, you want to plant trees, fine, great, wonderful. You want to pick up trash. I akin it to putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. It just doesn't work. You first have to address the wound. And the wound for communities like Chester, any Black, Brown, Indigenous community is almost a given spot for an environmental justice issue where that community has been dumped on, whether it be by trash, polluting industries, redlining. They've redlined us in certain areas and dumped all of the pollution and those type of facilities in the areas where we live at. So we are seeking environmental justice. So Saturday's march, this Saturday, April the 24th, beginning at 11 a.m., we're going to march from our city hall down to the incinerator. And it's about environmental justice. That is what we are seeking.
Right.
We don't have it yet. We're fighting for it. And it is about saving our space. Mm-hmm. Because we have been redlined, and whether you have good credit, money, there are certain areas that they're going to push our communities into. And it's a historical thing, and so is environmental racism. It has been in the historical thing.
Yeah, and this is the Cavanta incinerator, which, and the city of Philadelphia uses that incinerator, takes all its trash out. Philadelphia also has its own like major trash pollution issue, but it's shifting all its trash over to you all.
The city of brotherly love, sisterly affection has made a choice, a decision that they will participate in environmental racism. That incinerator is the largest one in the country. They burn about 3,500 tons of trash per day, of which roughly about 30% comes from Philadelphia. Another 30% comes from New York. 27% of it comes from Delaware County. Those are the areas outside of Chester. Chester sends roughly less than 2% of trash generated in Chester go to that incinerator. We also get trash from Ocean City, Maryland, and as far away as from Puerto Rico. So we are the dumping ground for everybody's garbage, and they burn. It's not trash to steam. It's not wasted energy. They burn. And everybody knows whenever you burn anything, there's a waste afterwards, which is the ash and the pollution that comes into the air.
Yeah. And I don't think people really realize the magnitude of that, like that kind of stressor on Chester, the magnitude of so much trash. People just are not really opened up to like how bad that truly is. And then and that becomes a regional public health and environmental catastrophe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We people don't see it because they put their garbage on the curb. But you have to realize that garbage is impacting somebody.
Yeah.
And what we've started to do is to do a lot of education in the counties around. Yes, the garbage comes here, it's burned here, but don't think the pollution from this incinerator stays here. And it has some significant health impacts for not only the people of Chester, but all of Delaware County. We have our children, roughly about 39% of, no, wait a minute, let me get the facts right. 38% of our children have asthma.
38%.
38%. 38%. It's 5 times the national average, 3 times the state average. 25% of the adults in Chester have asthma and are more likely to develop lung cancer or ovarian cancer or die from stroke or heart disease. And this is in direct relation to the particulate matter and the other pollution that comes out of that incinerator.
So 38% of children have asthma, 25% of adults have asthma or have cancer?
They have cancer or some form of
respiratory illness.
Yeah, respiratory illness, which has made the COVID more prevalent in Chester and other communities like Chester.
We're talking with Zulene Mayfield. Go to chesterresidents.org, chesterresidents.org to learn more about what they're up to, what she's been up to. You've heard her before here on WURD. I can't wait to see her on the other side of this this pandemic apocalypse we've been through. And so I'm looking forward to that next day. I remember last time I saw you, I think it was in person. We were doing a panel. We had an EcoWord panel. So it was good to see you, at least seeing you safe for the moment, Zulene, and doing that work. What about the response from policymakers? I wonder, who's your state representative for Chester? And what about other local and state elected officials? And even who's your member of Congress? Are they talking about this issue or doing anything?
Our state rep has been silent on this. His name is Brian Kirkland. He's not been very responsive to this, even though it affects his constituency.
Yeah.
Senator Kane has been more responsive. We have talked to Mary Gay Scanlon. She's also a representative in this area. So we're trying to move them along. Our local government is absolutely in opposition to what most of the residents want, which is clean air. It's bad when you tie pollution with profit. A man to pay a certain amount to the city's budget. And I would like to think that's the only reason why they feel as though they are beholden to them. But the bottom line is, if Covanta decided to shut down tomorrow, guess what? We still got a city that we have to run. So we cannot be prostituted for pollution.
Yeah.
It's that, period. Only 6 jobs at that incinerator are held by people that live in the city of Chester. So it's not an issue about jobs. 6.
6.
I can hire a crew to clean around the outside of my house and hire 6 people. So you want to diminish the quality of life for a whole community for 6 jobs. You want to pollute a whole community. Yeah. Our mayor, who is Mayor Kirkland, recently said that he has 13 grandchildren. He has a family that lives there. And nobody he knows is using an inhaler. Nobody that he knows is an asthmatic. Come on.
Yeah.
But nobody is tracking, how many times our children are pulled out of school for an asthma attack. We can't get the information on how many times they're hospitalized. Yeah. And it's an added thing to that, Charles. We know that certain pollution, such as lead, we already know the effects of lead because we've had a long history with it in this country. That's why we banned it in paint. There has to be a correlation between the pollutants that children are breathing.
Yeah.
Then when they come to a maturity, we know what lead does to the body. It diminishes learning. You may have behavioral issues. So is that pollution tied to the violence in our communities? Because something is wrong.
Yeah. And we see the studies all the time. We see the science showing, the direct correlations between the pollution, that accumulation of hazardous, toxic substances and materials, and not just like those rising public health chronic disease problems, but also violence.
Absolutely.
And Chester's been dealing with that for a long time, just like Philadelphia is dealing with that. People wonder, they're like, they're kind of stupefied and wondering, scratching their heads, like, where's this violence coming from? It's like, well, look at the pollution we've been dealing with for all these years. That's going to have an impact on people, not just physically, not just in terms of, things like asthma and cancers, but also neurologically. I mean, there are long-term impacts in terms of crime in like Flint, Michigan, for example, with the lead in water there, because the lead in water affects people's like nerve systems. Nervous system. So, it's these long-term, and it's just accumulated social costs over time. That's costing the city money. It's not just costing residents, obviously, their lives and trauma, but it's also costing the city money, costing the region money, costing the state money.
The healthcare system, the prison system, right. And our goal is to keep our children out of prison.
Yeah.
But if they're being polluted that are to the point where it's causing certain behaviors, and nobody is dealing with those issues, nobody really wants to study it, or the studies are out there and they're covered.
Yeah.
It's very hard to uncover that type of information.
Hey, Zuline, talk about, this issue, and this issue is not just confined to Chester. Like, this is a national issue. So people need to pay attention and think, oh, well, that's just Chester. It's not just Chester. Like, this is happening. It's just like, Zuline, you said this earlier on at the top. Any Black, brown, indigenous community is a target for environmental injustice, just by virtue of the zip code, the space they live in. And so, talk about this. We're having this moment of recognition of Black Lives Matter. It's been particularly pronounced over the past year. But then, I wonder about bigger organizations and institutions who say, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but then they're, just like you said, like, they're not doing the studies and they're not making the investments. Like, they're not
even
someone
Charles,
like you and Chester residents to do that kind of work.
Absolutely. Even Charles, I can tell you this. The word environmentalist, I have a real, it puts something in my neck. Because the traditional environmentalists in the environmental groups that I have met and encountered, they are not the cavalry and they don't run the communities like Chester.
Yeah.
However, they will fundraise. If they can prostitute a group like Chester residents, they will. All of them have this environmental justice movement now in their clause or in their, but their mantra is not coming to communities like Chester and helping. However, they also suck up funding that groups like frontline groups right in the trenches, on the lines, we don't have access to those funders.
Yeah.
Where we need that. We need that because we are working people. We are residents first. I am a resident who became active because we have a terrible problem. But groups like mine will assist and help other groups in like-minded battles. Like you have a group up in Philly, the Neighborhood Against Gas Plants. They have a rally today at 5 o'clock at Wissahickon and Roberts.
Right, with the SEPTA gas plant.
With the SEPTA.
Right.
Who made a decision versus electricity, they want to put a gas plant there.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of a neighborhood like Chester. So there's a network where we're starting to help and assist each other. And these people who are claiming to be environmental justice people, they better get off of their behinds because we're going to ready to start steamrolling.
Yeah.
We are joining together. We are collaborating. This is a movement, and it's based off of a necessity. We have no other choice but to collaborate. The Black Lives Movement has been important because it has showed the disparity and the inequities where other people, it's undeniable. It is undeniable, and it is also given a new generation the same things we had to do in the 60s concerning civil rights. It showed them what we've done before and what works. And it's a collaboration of all types of people. The Black Lives Movement didn't pick up when it was just us marching. When other people that aren't of our color, our nature, our complexion started joining that movement, it became more powerful. And that's what it takes. It takes people to realize you're no different from me. What you allow to happen in my community, you do also to yours.
Yeah.
People really actually thought that, oh, all of the nasty stay in Chester. There's a force field over Chester where all the pollution stays there. And we've worked all of last year to educate them. No, this is not the case. It's not the case. And you have communities outside of Chester who are working on zero waste resolutions, making a decision for their community that they will not participate in environmental racism by sending their trash there. They are stating it. That is not something that they want to do. Let's seek out the alternatives.
Yeah.
But many times they put it on communities like this to be the waste managers. And it shouldn't be that way.
You have said, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, Zuline, but I think it's important for people to hear because I had this conversation with you once. There was another panel we did about a few months ago that was put together, environmental justice virtual panel, and you were saying, you know, I'm not an environmentalist. I don't consider myself an environmentalist. And I thought about what you said like long and hard because I always thought, okay, well, you know, you're for, you know, improving your space, you're for protecting our environment. So, you know, that kind of makes me an environmentalist. But that really forced me to rethink that term. But I'd like for you to sort of talk with us about that, like why you don't see yourself as an environmentalist, the same way you don't celebrate Earth Day.
Listen, I think that people always want to justify or put you in a box as to why you do what you do. And titling a person, it puts you in that box.
Yeah.
I am many things. I've had to become many things. I've had to become a waste manager. I've had to become a logistics manager. I've had to deal with the trash trucks, 400 to 500 rolling through Chester every day. I've had to become a police officer. I've had to become the Department of Environmental Pollution inspector. When they're not around, I've had to become the EPA. So you cannot pigeonhole somebody like me into one label. Oh, well, she does this because she's an environmentalist.
Right.
she's a tree hugger.
Mm-hmm.
Because they tried to take and turn that into a dirty word.
Right, diminish it.
Yes, you diminish
really what's
it.
going on, right.
I am a resident first. That's all I've ever wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take and you put somebody in a corner, this is for the very survival of this city. I cannot see our city prospering, moving on, as long as this beast is there operating and polluting people into illness. Give our children a chance. You know, they can sustain your body and you never have to put a piece of food in your mouth.
Yeah.
But if you can't breathe, you can't do a darn thing.
I can't.
There's no way that they can get around that. And it is important what our people and what our children are breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Why should our quality of life, our homes be destroyed, our community be destroyed for other people's comfort? I don't give a rat's behind about somebody's trash in New York or what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a NIMBY, not my backyard issue, but I'm saying is, why are all of those things in all of our backyards?
Right. Right.
And people of color backyards and front yards and literally on top of them.
Especially when we have more than enough as a society, we have more than enough money and resources, we have more than enough innovative thinking, we have more than enough already technology and ingenuity to figure out that problem together, to figure out, okay, well, we do waste as a civilization, as a society. Okay, so let's get down together and, you know, maximize the opportunities we've already created through the technology and through the, you know, through the ideas and the innovation and the funding, and figure out what to do with it other than dumping it on other people and making other people sick and taking people's future away.
But they always, you know, Charles, it's always, we as a people are always put in position.
Yeah.
Our health is bad because it's something that we're doing. Oh, it's our lifestyle, it's our diet, it's where we work at. But they never talk about what we are exposed to all of our lives. So the people have the least are supposed to come up with the most solutions to this. We gave them a solution one time.
Yeah.
You want to deal with the trash issue? I tell you what, for everybody that puts a bag of garbage on the streets and it comes to Chester, charge them $250. Put that money into a trust fund and divide it amongst every man, woman, and child in Chester. And I will guarantee you, they will find a solution.
Right.
It'll come lickety split.
They'll figure it out.
Honey,
We've seen it happen.
They're going to have bottle trees. They're going to be having trash shingles. It will not be that.
They'll figure it out. We've seen that happen time and again. Julian,
absolutely. When you make it cost, and they got to pay that cost versus the people in Chester and communities like Chester paying for it with their health.
Right.
Solutions come.
That's true.
And they find solutions in their communities because you don't see these freaking things in their communities.
That's right. Zuline, unfortunately, I got to let you go. So I don't have you on often enough. So, but I really
once again, today. April 24th,
Saturday.
City Hall, 11 o'clock, ChesterResidents.org, EnergyJustice.net. You can get all the information you need.
ChesterResidents.org this Saturday, April 24th, 11 a.m. at Chester City Hall in Chester, PA, to come out and support Zuline Mayfield and to support Chester residents. Really
Environmental Justice Day for all of our communities.
That's right. So that'll be on this Saturday, April 24th at 11 a.m. Chester City Hall. Zuline, thanks so much. Please be safe. Stay healthy out there.
I'm trying to, Charles. I'm ducking and weaving.
All right. I know you are. All right. It's good to talk with you. Good to see you. Take care. All right. Peace. Okay, let's take a break and we'll be right back here on WURD.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Obama. Barack and I are so thrilled that we got our COVID-19 vaccine because this is a deadly disease and this vaccine will protect us from getting really sick. Getting vaccinated is safe and it could save your life and allow us to start getting back to seeing friends and family again. We can do this. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The Mattress Man is a second-generation family-owned mattress specialist business since 1988. Open 7 days a week, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. The Mattress Man discounts Serta, memory foam, orthopedic, and ComfortTech mattresses every day. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure you get the best price and best service. The Mattress Man offers same-day delivery on most models to most areas. Ask about the WURD discount. Call 215-424-5550.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
WURD Radio 2021 Level Up winner Anissa Smith is hosting her Black Food and Dessert Expo April 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the Urban Ridge, located at 5261 Ridge Avenue in Philadelphia. Titled The Spring Pop-Up Experience, is a power hour of sampling delicious food and drinks from one of the local chefs and bakers. Come taste and shop and have an amazing time in unity, safely together. The Black Food and Dessert Expo are excited to offer a place for consumers to shop safely while supporting Black-owned businesses. Safety is the #1 concern. This is a mask-required event, except when you're sampling the food, of course. They have built in 1-hour breaks to properly clean and sanitize the venue in between shop blocks. All guests will have their temperature taken before entry, and sanitizer and hand wipes will be available throughout the venue. To purchase tickets, go to the letter B, fadetickets.com. Again, that's bfadetickets.com. See you all for the Black Food and Dessert Expo Spring Pop-Up Experience. See you there.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
All right, welcome back to our EcoWord specials, our special Earth Day broadcast here on WURD. But, you know, we do this daily. We do EcoWord daily as a part of our environmental justice journalism initiative. You hear that quite daily on my public affairs program, Reality Check. But since it is Earth Day, we want some reflection. As you were just hearing Zuleen Mayfield, we don't celebrate Earth Day. It's time for a lot of reflection, time for a lot of discussion, and a lot of planning on how we push back against these attacks on our space. Issues of the environment are about issues of our space, the spaces we live in, that we're trying to prosper and thrive in, that we're trying to create a future for our children and grandchildren to live in. So this is a top priority issue. This is the top issue of our time. I would argue that it always has been the top #1 issue of our time, because it intersects with so many other issues that are on our radar and on our agenda. So I want to thank once again Keystone First and PICO for being partners in this special broadcast. Joining us now is Sekou Cook. He's a professor at Syracuse University, urban planning and gentrification expert. In fact, you can go to sekoucook.com, if I'm not mistaken, for more. Cook, spelled with an E at the end, .com, to get more information on his work and his research. Professor Cook, good to have you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Charles. Appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. So, you know, when we look at like this trial that just ended with Derek Chauvin, and now we're looking at, you know, these other grisly murders of unarmed Black people. Just the day of the Derek Chauvin verdict, we had Ma'Khia Bryant. Then we had Dante Wright before that verdict, as the trial was going on. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. To me, you know, one of the common themes that I'm seeing, and I'm wondering if you see it, is once again is space. It's like, you know, these spaces that they're forced in, or spaces that, you know, their space is being invaded upon. Talk about that.
Yeah, thanks. As an architect, I think that everything's about space, right? So space is the primary medium that we work in as architects. And as a Black man in America, I'm always conscious of how my access to space is limited or policed or controlled in different ways. So I'm always thinking about where that came from, why that's the case. So when we came here as slaves, we were put in vessels that were designed for maximum spatial capacity so that we could be packed in as tightly as we possibly could. Once we got here, we were told which spaces we could and couldn't access. And the punishment for violating that spatial order was, the whip or the hot box, or in some cases, lynching, right? So that's the spatial disparity in this country is part of our DNA. And so, things like gentrification and discriminatory zoning and redlining, all that, these are just outcroppings of that same DNA that we all share. So I'm always saddened when I hear these stories of unarmed shootings, but I never get surprised because that's the world that we've created.
Yeah, yeah. And the way you put that, because you write about this in a recent essay, I just want to quote this because I think it's very poignant.
Sure.
From slave quarters and farm settlements in the American South to post-migration urban ghettos and slums in the Northeast to public housing projects throughout American cities, the predominant spaces of Black inhabitation in this country have been leftover, disposable, and characterless environments. And so it's like that's what these fights really always do boil down to space. But so much of our attention and obsession and energy is caught up in the headlines, and for good reason. But like, how do we help people further make that connection? So like on Earth Day, that's all like, oh, planting trees and let's talk about how we save the planet.
Yeah.
But on Earth Day, it's really for us, for our communities, for Black communities especially, it's a discussion about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the fights that we face, and a lot of the fights are about deservedness. Like we deserve to have spaces that are healthy. We deserve to have spaces that are open and free. And we deserve more than that, to have spaces that are designed by and for us. I talk about this a lot in the book that I just wrote that's out today called Hip Hop Architecture. I talk about, how these leftover spaces are the spaces that we've always been handed, always been given. And the pioneers of the hip hop revolution, they took those spaces and always transformed them. They transformed them using their dance, their music, their bodies in space, their words, their voices, their art, their expression. And those spaces are always constantly being transformed and turned into something else. And, the pioneers of hip hop had more effect on transforming space than any architect or urbanist or environmentalist or policymaker in many ways. So leftover spaces are the spaces that we get given and we get relegated to a lot of times, but these are spaces that can be transformed into spaces of empowerment too.
We're talking with Sekou Cook. He is an architect, also director of the Master of Urban Design program at UNC Charlotte, University of North Carolina, Charlotte. You're still at Syracuse University? I'm sorry.
I'm at Syracuse right now. I'm just recently appointed at UNC Charlotte. I'll be starting there in the fall.
Excellent, excellent. It's good to know. So, and we're going to definitely tap you for more of these kinds of conversations. Author of the newly released Hip Hop Architecture. Go to Sekou Cook, SEKOU Cook with an E at the end, .com, SekouCook.com to learn more. He's also at Sekou Cook on social media as well to learn more about that. Urban planning, like the urban planning space, you're an architect and we talk about that quite often on my regular daily public affairs program, Reality Check, about urban planning, things like zoning and redlining and, even zoning, which seems so innocuous now. It's rooted in anti-Black segregation. And so, talk about that too, about how like we need to urban plan differently. First of all, there's not enough of us in the urban planning spaces. And then two, cities especially need to learn how to plan better to prevent these kinds of calamities and catastrophes from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it just takes more of us at the table, right? architecture and all the design fields are some of the most, are some of the spaces that have least number of Black people in the room, right? So when we're talking about issues that affect Black and brown people, if we're not in the room, then we're never going to have the power, right? So when we talk about all of these issues like environmental justice, these are social justice issues. And these are issues that affect where we are put in spaces, which part of the city we get to access, which part of the city we get to occupy. And then what kind of infrastructural projects go through these spaces? When they're about to build a highway, where does it go? You know, when they're about to build a civic center for a city, they're clearing slums and putting a civic center there. I deal with this a lot in a project that I did for MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, in a current exhibition called Reconstructions, Architecture and Blackness in America. It's currently on view until May 31st at MoMA. And that project is about Syracuse. It's about the history of racist environmental practices in Syracuse and how public houses have been transformed by highways and infrastructure and how we're always being displaced and placed over and over again.
Professor, how do you think we mobilize around an issue like this? You know, at first it comes with more recognition, realization, and elevation, like as a priority topic. But then how do we mobilize around it? How can we better plan and mobilize? I mean, one way is talking about it like we're doing now. Another way is, you kind of just hinted at it, like more of us need to enter the architecture, design space, the urban planning space. But what are some other ways we need to mobilize on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to get into those spaces, into the architecture, design, and planning spaces. And because from that position, we have a really key role in the process of creating all of these spaces. So we are, as architects and designers, we are a primary connector between all of the stakeholders in any project, right? We're working directly with the clients and the funders, right? But we're also working directly with the communities. So we have the ear of the funders and the clients, the people who are making the decisions. And we don't have to just sit back and take the orders and provide a service. We can actually push back and question all of the decisions that they're making. At the same time, we need to engage with the communities. And I talk quite a bit about going beyond community engagement, which usually looks like going into a community, finding out ideas and thoughts from them, and then taking it back to our offices and then doing what we want anyway. But I start talking about community empowerment, which is where we're actually teaching people and engaging people and meeting and designing with them and planning with them instead of planning and designing for them. We want them to be an integral part of the entire design process.
Has pandemic reshaped how we're going about all of this? I mean, is there some glimmer of hope that we're, like, especially cities, and also how governments treat marginalized, disenfranchised communities in terms of their space? Has it offered us any opportunity to rethink this, to re-alter the way we're going about, impacting attacking people's spaces like that?
Absolutely. I think it's been a space of pause for everybody, for us to stop and think about how we live and what we're thinking about and what we're doing. It's given us space and awareness of some of the deeper issues in our country, as we saw last summer, right, with all of the unrest, the political unrest that was happening in our country. We learned a whole lot more about the value of outdoor spaces, right? Like the value of being close to park spaces. We learned a lot about the value of outdoor spaces for retail and for restaurants. And a lot of those spaces are going to be changing really quickly. And how we occupy the city is going to be changing really quickly. And this is one of the things I'm going to be tackling. One of the research projects I'm going to be taking on as the director of the urban design program at UNC Charlotte. We're going to be looking at some of the high-rise towers that used to be office buildings, and now we don't know when they're coming back. And these are office buildings in downtown Charlotte, or what they call uptown in Charlotte now. I'm learning my Charlotte lingo. And so how do we transform those buildings or transform that streetscape, transform the uptown into something that can still be livable, but is now a prototype for the future, for an equitable future, for a just future within the city.
You know, what's interesting too, Professor, just final thoughts on this is, and our last guest hinted at this to a degree. I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen in on her and talk about what's happening in Chester, Pennsylvania. It's real
Sure.
tragic. But we as like communities on the front line of these environmental calamities, of issues of our time, like climate crisis, if given the resources, if plugged into the right spaces, you know, we're like the decisive edge in the fight to like really save the planet, right? I mean, if you think about it, because we've been on the front, we know how severe environmental injustice and environmental calamity and catastrophe, we know how severe all of that is, that direct frontal assault on a space. So just imagine if, you know, we were just given the opportunity more and more to be in those spaces, to make those kinds of decisions, to lead on those issues. Not just better communities, but we'd be a much better world for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said before, environmental justice issues are social justice issues, right? Mm-hmm. Like we are always on the front lines. We're always the canaries in the coal mine. We're always ones that are where these things are being tested on. So I think and that's made us more innovative, right? That's made us be more adaptive. You know, hip hop as a culture would not exist without us being on the front lines of those talks, right? So this is one of these really beautiful things. You know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's also a beautiful expression of Black joy and love, and it's a beautiful expression of our innovation and creativity. And I think that can extend to so many other sectors of our country if we really allow it to affect those spaces, for sure.
I have to check this book out, Hip Hop Architecture by Sekou Cook, architect, urban planner, design expert. He's also the newly appointed director of the Master of Urban Design program at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Also teaches up at Syracuse University. Check out Sekou Cook's studio, which is in Syracuse or based in Syracuse. SekouCook.com to learn more about his work and him. And I get a feeling we're going to have you back on more often than not, Dr. Cook. Really appreciate your time. I appreciate the insights. Thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate you, Charles. Thanks. Take care.
All right. Take care. You do the same. Be safe. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back on the side, more EcoWord. Here, our special Earth Day coverage on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We'll be right back.
Hey WURD family, have you heard of the new Go to Know campaign? If not, here is the deal. WURD Radio has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Penn Medicine, LabCorp, and the Independence Blue Cross Foundation to present the Go to Know Fit Kit Screening Campaign. The Go to Know campaign is an at-home screening test for colon cancer. Yup, you heard me right. You can take your own stool sample and mail it back for testing. Did you know colon cancer, if caught early, is 100% preventable? African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. Plus, it is recommended you get screened if you are 45 years of age or older. So for the next 6 months, you can go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. It's that simple. Again, just go to WURDradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and request your free at-home screening test. That's it. Go to Know today.
Spring forward with premium nutrition meals. Enjoy a variety of new exciting entrees along with rewards and referrals program that pays you to eat and tell. As always, everything is chef crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered to your door. Just visit premiumnutritionmeals.com, where listeners get $10 off 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWORD at checkout.
Hello, this is City Council member Helen Gim. I'm calling with important information about COVID-19 vaccines. In the coming weeks, all Philadelphians over the age of 16 will be eligible for vaccination. However, you must be registered with the city to get vaccinated. Register today at www.phila.gov and fill out the vaccine interest form or email covid@phila.gov. If you can't complete the online form, call 311 to get registered.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at forward. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
All right, welcome back to our EcoWord special Earth Day coverage here on WURD. Joining me now is Agbana Higgins, also AKA the Philly Green Man, longtime community activist and sustainability expert, recycling expert in the city of Philadelphia. For more on him, I believe you can go to facebook.com/PhillyGreenMan, but you can correct me on that, Agbana. He's joining us here on EcoWord. How are you doing, sir? Good afternoon.
All right, how you doing? I'm doing great.
Right. Good. Did I have it correct? Facebook.com/PhillyGreenMan?
Yeah,
okay.
You have it correct. They can just do a Google search on Ogbonna Higgins, Ogbonna, Higgins, Hagins.
Excellent. All right, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, I had to have you in this conversation to help us determine, like, what are those most pressing, distinct environmental, eco challenges for Philadelphia right now? Because there's quite a few of them. I know violence and pandemic are at the top, but those are intersected with those environmental issues, right?
I think that the number one issue in the country really is waste. It's waste. I mean, there's a lot of food that has been given away over the pandemic. And in my travels, I see a lot of it just thrown away. Onions, potatoes, squash, all that food is not being eaten and is being thrown away. And we don't really examine what that really means. We look at just the food being thrown away, but look at what it took to produce that food. The hundreds of gallons of water, the fertilizer, the manpower, and then shipping it or trucking it to wherever it has to go, then the person driving to the store, then they're purchasing it, and then 50% of whatever people purchase is thrown away.
Thrown away. We don't think about that. We take it for granted. And
Absolutely.
So that must rankle you too, particularly when you're in a city as food insecure as Philadelphia. Like, right, I think it's not insecure. I mean, we have all this waste, though.
It's not insecure. It's just waste. We have to change our mindset. The scripture says something to the effect, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So people have to renew their minds to understand exactly what they're doing. It has to be taught.
How do we go about then, like, diminishing or eliminating all that waste? So what's, like, especially from what you've been working on, Ogbonna, in the city for quite a long time, you ran on city council on this issue. So, like, what's the plan? What's the solution to eliminating all this waste?
Education. People have to be made aware exactly what they're doing. I have a Philly Green Man plan for the city, as you mentioned, when I ran for city council.
Right.
And the most disturbing thing about that is that, our leadership, man, they haven't reached out to even consider what the Philly Green Man plan is and how it could create a win-win situation. There's tons of jobs that can be created through recycling. That's the number one thing. So you create jobs, you keep the city clean. So it's so many different issues. There was a former state representative, I forget her name, I think it was Wendy Allman. She presented a bill, 1322, which is a recycling bill to reestablish the deposit on the bottles that are purchased. You know, on all the bottles, and you see a 5-cent deposit. But Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we don't get that. So that one bill there could change the whole dynamics of waste in Philadelphia. So if people know that they can get 5 cents back for every bottle, you can see the youth out in the streets collecting bottles. As a matter of fact, there is a brother in Philadelphia. This is illegal, but this is how big it is. This brother, he buys bags of plastic bottles, the big 40-gallon construction bags.
Right.
He buys them for $5. I believe it's either $4 or $5 per bag.
Right.
He collects them. Then he drives to New York, and he drives to New York.
That's him calling now. Like, why you on my spot of Obama? Like,
nobody.
Like, don't
nobody
talk about that.
know
Don't
who
talk
it
about
is.
my hustle, man. Like,
No, but it's a major hustle that really Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, they're losing money.
Yeah.
They're losing the opportunity to keep the city clean, to help the youth make some money. And it's just astounding to me. I've spoken to at least 2 state representatives on this issue, and they haven't gotten back to me yet.
Yeah.
So they don't see it as an important issue. You see, so, I mean, our leadership has to step up on this issue. And you had the architectural designer on there. I'm an architectural designer myself. I taught architecture.
I realize that. Okay.
Yeah, I taught architecture at Dobbins High School for 9 years.
Okay.
Award-winning students and everything. So here's the other thing. Construction waste. I don't know what the percentage is, but I see construction waste all the time. Half sheets of plywood, the old timber joists from old buildings just tossed away. That's another job that can be created. That's another business that can be created just collecting construction waste. The old bathtubs, you know, old sinks, the timber, like I mentioned. All these things are jobs to be created, as opposed to letting that stuff go to the landfill. Here's another issue.
I mean, I see people taking old bathtubs and old sinks and repurposing them to put them into new houses.
Absolutely, because
I watch it on TV like almost every day. Like sometimes I'll be clicking on HGTV, and I'm looking at these white folks like making, you know, like amazing feats of ingenuity out of old broken bathtubs and putting it in what they're calling a brand new house.
Right. Now
those $1 million price tag on it.
The reason that they're getting those old bathtubs is because those bathtubs are actually more energy efficient because they're made out of cast iron.
Wow.
So they hold the heat, you know, from the hot water. So I mean, we're really not analyzing how important this is to the environment. I mean, it's great to have solar panels and all that, but we're dismissing waste, and that's just a major issue that I feel that's not really being addressed.
Speaking of like jobs and workforce development, entrepreneurial opportunities for our community, and particularly for young people, you know, the biggest crisis that's happening in Philadelphia right now is gun violence. So talk about how this issue of waste, if we fix it, if we solve it, we actually start solving our gun violence problem.
Well, absolutely. It's been studies done that show that your environment affect your emotional, your emotions.
Right.
So if you walk outside and all you see is trash and piles of trash bags all over, it affects how you think. And what has happened, because it hasn't really been seriously addressed, it creates a mindset of dirt. You know, I'm a mind scientist, right? And as a man thinks, so is he, right? So when you go out and you see this dirt and this trash, you're thinking dirt and trash. So you just add on top of all of that, you know, just by not addressing the issue. I mean, it's studies that's been done that says that violence is more prevalent when you have a dirty environment. And I will be willing to bet that if you analyze where a lot of this violence is happening, and I hate using the term violence, the non-peace that's happening, you'll see that you have an environment that's dirty, full of trash.
Yeah, yeah. We're talking with Ivana Higgins, Philly Green Man, longtime sustainability environmental expert, activist, focusing on waste and recycling. You know, those are big opportunities to not only refresh and clean a city like Philadelphia's, but also to create a new expansive economy. You know, waste, I mean, it's hard to get through to people. I know you were saying like people have to undergo that transformation of the mind, but it's just so hard to try to get people to wrap their heads around waste, around trash being a #1 issue. But I'm with you on that because I've always said, like, to the point, I mean, I'm almost on a daily basis saying, hey, listen, you can't call yourself, especially if you're an elected official, and you live in these same communities, in these same neighborhoods, you drive by them, you see all this trash and waste all over the place. You can't on one hand say, I'm concerned about violence, I want to stop violence in the city, but you're not figuring out a way to clean up the city, to do something about the accumulating mounds of trash and waste in the city.
Right. I think what the leadership is doing is looking at it from a narrow vision. Yeah. We need to look at this from a holistic perspective. You know, so in our education system, I think I heard earlier someone mention about education, you know, 6 out of 10 high school graduates in Philadelphia can't read, write, or do math on a high school level.
That's right.
So, you know, that being the case, they can't even comprehend what's being said. You see, yeah. So if we don't deal with the education issue, it's difficult to deal with any of the other issues. In terms of voting, how do you vote if you can't read, if you can't analyze what one candidate is doing over the other? You know, I made a post, and I'm not supporting any of the candidates. I don't really know these candidates, right? But I just made a issue about the fact that the crime rate in Philadelphia has increased and the conviction rate has decreased.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if one is not able to read and study about those issues, how can they intelligently vote for a candidate? And thus we have a lot of candidates in office who are just really not the best candidate for the office. Yeah. But because the people are so, you know, focused in on what someone popular or when somebody popular tells them who to vote for, that they just go with that, and they're not using their own mind to determine logically who they should be voting for. And we get the same exact types of candidates year in and year out, again, because I believe because of the education system. Yeah. People are not aware. So if they're not educated, how are they going to know?
Yeah. Well, Vanna Higgins, Philly Green Man, for more on him, go to facebook.com/Philly Green Man. And we don't have you on it. We will, I promise you, we will have discussions more often. I promise to bring you on.
Can I make one more comment just to give an example of the level of waste? In America, there are 13 million tons of textiles thrown away, clothing. 13 million tons. And again, cotton has to be grown. So look at all of that water and fertilizer that's wasted. The level, there are 300 million pairs of footwear that's just thrown away every year. And those footwear, because that's one of my major areas is recycling sneakers and shoes, but all of those shoes end up in the landfill. And one more thing, I noticed that PHA, the Philadelphia Housing Authority, when people move out of those buildings, they throw away tons and tons of usable goods. And guess what? I couldn't get it. It's against the law for me to get that waste. So it's more feasible for the city to throw that usable stuff away than it is to let someone get it and to be able to make a living out of it.
And then throw some of that stuff away on another community, a majority Black community called Chester, where they have to deal with 38% of their kids with asthma, 25% of their adults with asthma or some form of cancer. So no, you absolutely,
and they have to pay. They have to pay to dump that. So you know when you add all of that up, you see why Philadelphia is the poorest big city. We're not thinking economically about waste. Waste not, want not. One man's trash is another man's treasure. But you know, hey man, they don't see it.
They don't. Vanna Higgins, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you, Philly Green Man. Thank you so much.
No doubt. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Again. All right.
All
Take
right.
care. Peace. Be safe. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, I just saw him sneak into the Zoom. Let's see if we can get him to sneak back. State Representative Napoleon Nelson, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, keeping with our tradition when we have Philadelphia area elected officials on. The phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives. With vaccines, we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, hers new fire potato chips and cheese curls. They are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Hers Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Hers.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Stage Door, focusing on arts and culture in and around Philadelphia. Hosted by Tiffany Bacon and co-moderated by Jeffrey Page of the Philadelphia Theater Company. Part of The Source, Fridays at noon, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. Sponsored by New Voices sponsor Comcast, NBC Universal, and Pico. The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
Okay, welcome back to EcoWord. This is our special Earth Day broadcast, The Fight for Our Space, here on WURD. I'm Charles Ellison, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. We are at Facebook.com/forward. I see some comments there. A couple of people enjoying the broadcast, enjoying the very thoughtful conversations, the insights that we have on here today, and getting people into that mindset about being warriors for their space, because that's exactly what Earth Day is all about. So a lot of reflection happening and a lot of planning, and hopefully action and mobilization too around these issues. Joining me now is Pennsylvania State Representative Napoleon Nelson. He represents the 154th Legislative District in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's parts of Montgomery County. Go to pahouse.com/Nelson for more on what he's up to. He's been focused quite a bit on the environment and on environmental justice. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 in case you have a question for him during our conversation with Representative Nelson. How are you doing, Representative? Good to see you.
It's a pleasure always. Thank you for having me back.
Excellent, excellent. No, good to have you back. How have you been prioritizing environmental justice issues? I've been watching it quite a bit. I know you're kind of sort of the point person these days for the Legislative Black Caucus in Pennsylvania on that topic, but how have you been elevating it in policymaking and public discourse these days?
I appreciate that question. I don't appreciate the pressure you just put on me with that title. No, we are working real hard to make sure that we do continue to elevate this dialogue within the African American community, the BIPOC communities throughout our Commonwealth. And part of it is just that, it's conversation. Part of it is elevating this concept around environmental injustices that are happening to us as part of that longer list of all of the woes and all of the ills that we're seeing and realizing on a regular basis. Again, we just came out of some major realizations throughout the rest of the world around policing in our communities. We're dealing right now, and so much of our conversation in Pennsylvania and around this kind of this budget season is around education and fair funding of our school system. There are so many, I hate to say it, there's so many things that could kill us as African Americans as we deal with pandemics and comorbidities.
Right.
We don't oftentimes prioritize as high as perhaps we should, fighting for those green spaces that we need in our communities, fighting to make sure that our air and our water quality is what it is. You know, we're fortunate that we're not yet the Flint, Michigans of the United States. We don't have that here yet. So it hasn't elevated our environmental injustices to that same level of kind of concern and activism. But make no mistake, part of what we're realizing, part of why we had such significant comorbidities and health effects as we dealt with COVID, especially from a respiratory perspective, is because so many in our communities are living with this poor air. You know, the lung cancer has given us a heads up. Hey, if you live in Philadelphia County, the odds that you are breathing, air that is not of the highest quality, I will say, is significant. The number of African Americans in our communities who are living close to certainly industrial zones, and I'll call it mixed use lands, but also, living close to many of those kind of, those high pollutant, kind of industrial spaces, whether they be from power plants, whether they be from refineries, or whether they are kind of incinerators and waste spaces. It's significant. We are, unfortunately, being significantly negatively impacted by our environment, and oftentimes by environmental decisions. And so if I can help continue to elevate that in our legislative consciousness and in our community consciousness, then I'm happy to do it.
How do you, so everyone sees like these very alarming public health impacts, for example, from, and then those public health impacts lead into lower productivity, more distress and devastating economy, especially for like marginalized, like Black communities in a place like Philadelphia, and others as well. So, so how do we, then like push for legislation in a legislature? Like, for example, I was just having a conversation with the CEO of the Philadelphia Energy Authority, who was saying that like, we want community solar. We would love to have it where it's just like total reliance in the region, or greater reliance in the region on solar. But in Harrisburg, they don't want to pass a bill for communities. So they don't allow, Pennsylvania does not allow for community solar. So it's like, it's like, how do you push through, just clean energy, environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious, environmentally just legislation in a climate like that? But then two, there's this other argument that says, oh, we can't do clean energy yet because we'll lose jobs. It's like, no, actually, you're missing out on a bunch of jobs.
Yeah, and there's so much there, right? Because the first part is just, how do we make sure that we try and advance a legislative agenda that's, clean and responsible? And I hate to say, some of that comes down to make sure we vote, right? Make sure we have a habit of voting. Our voting incidents in those communities, that are environmentally degraded is significantly less than those that aren't. We need to make sure that we march to the polls. That's very important. There are other areas, though, that we can also make sure that we're fighting for. And some of it is actually within ourselves, right? So if I said that environmental justice and a greener, both economy and greener space is, a top 2 issue within the Legislative Black Caucus. It's not. It's not even a top 2 issue necessarily, as I sit back and talk with my folks here in my district office, because there are so many pressing needs that are facing our community.
Let me ask you that though, Representative, because I think you raise a good point. How do we frame it so where it is a priority? Because I feel like it is the #1 issue, and I feel like it intersects. Like, remember you were starting off talking about like the issues with respect to police violence, police brutality.
Yep.
Those are environmental justice issues. So I mean, do you think that like maybe if there's a dramatic kind of paradigm shift or reframing of how we talk about it, like I've been very intentional in the way, like even for this program today, like we at one point we were saying, oh, let's just have a conversation about restore our Earth. I'm like, no, you know what? This is about space. Like Black people are threatened in every space we're in, and so let's talk about how this is a fight for our space. So do you think a dramatic reframing of the conversation might help people make it a priority issue?
Yeah, and it's kind of, so there's a classic, the age-old expression, just walk and chew gum.
Yeah.
We can call it walk and pick up trash or walk and eat an apple. But realistically, what we're talking about is we have to be able to look at police brutality and our environment and be able to accomplish both. Both need to be items that we keep on our forefront as legislators, as local executives, as community leaders and activists, and as parents, teachers, gatekeepers of the next generation or young activists. We need to be able to do both, because you're right, we're trying to make sure we can survive today. But, if we spend all of our time trying to survive today such that the tomorrow isn't sustainable because we've allowed our environment to get to this point, or tomorrow isn't sustainable because we no longer have clean, local, sustainably sourced food, or tomorrow is no longer sustainable because all of our infrastructure needs have been squandered, wasted, and are literally killing us, then what were we surviving for today? Yeah. So that's why I say, it is one of those items that it's very important to us within the legislature, that we're not only focusing on what we are deeming those, immediate fights, but we need to make sure that we're always keeping our eye on this large, big picture of, are we building a sustainable community? If we're not, what are we doing? And are we being distracted by, I hate to say that the former president was classic in his ability to distract, right? There's a greater picture. There's big stuff happening in the world, in the nation, but he would kind of throw out this news clip, or he'd throw out this soundbite on Twitter, and all of a sudden we would eat it up for the next 3 or 4 days within our media. There are so many items that I don't want to call it a distraction. I'm not calling, police brutality. I'm not calling underfunded education a distraction, but it is something that we're looking at now, and it, if we're not careful, we then take our eye off the ball of making sure that our communities aren't just being erased. My mother-in-law lives down in Southwest Philly, and in her community, if there are bad storms, because she's right there on the creek, there is significant flooding.
That's right.
People's homes are being washed away, and this is what's happening from an environmental injustice perspective for her, for that area in Southwest, and it's something that we need to make sure we keep on our minds, because there is another storm coming. That's and right. If we don't have those answers, because we spend all of our time fighting the other fights that each of those residents knows we need to fight for, then we've kind of, you're winning the battle, losing the war.
I'm happy you said that too. I've seen that data. I've seen that data where like the flooding that's hitting the Philadelphia region more and more, the folks who are most impacted or most troubled by that, like your mother-in-law, for example, are Black and brown neighborhoods, Black and brown residents. Those are the ones who are sitting in those flood areas, those flood zones. And it's going to get increasingly worse over the next 30 years, if we don't mitigate it, or if we don't figure out a way to like stop it or to manage it. And there are ways, stormwater management is a big deal. in Philadelphia. I want to ask you about, speaking about, just kind of new paradigms, new industries, new ways of not just thinking, but doing. There's a lot of talk and a lot of excitement, especially with, well, the pandemic relief bill and now this infrastructure bill. We can grow finally a clean energy economy. You got an administration that's friendly to clean energy. And so, but I like the fact that we're talking about green energy. I love the fact we're talking about environmental justice. But I want to start talking about environmental economy. Like, how do we ensure in a very intentional way that our communities are benefiting from that burgeoning clean energy sector and economy? It's like the cannabis economy that's growing now. Like, we went to jail and got punished for generations for dealing in it. Now finally it goes legal. Oh, we don't need you anymore. You can't get in. Sorry, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up this business. Sorry, even though like at one point our communities were like masters in the illegal trade of it, now it's like no cannabis equity as we get to a point where this is going to be $100 billion business by 2030. But talk about the clean energy sector and how we create more inclusiveness and equity in that.
Sure. And I think one of the things that I like to look at, I'm not sure most of us on I'll call it this side of the Susquehanna in kind of the Philadelphia metro region, know about some of the thought and conversation that's happening out west. There's a great kind of consortium of organizations that have put together this vision called Reimagine Appalachia. It is really compelling. Not only kind of the vision that they're able to paint, they paint this amazing vision of what their future communities ought to be. They're reimagining their homes and their businesses. And as you can imagine with, our economy and our ecology, as you can imagine what this all ought to look like, they're all interlocked. It's symbiosis of, jobs, education, just kind of community engagement and the environment. And what they've done, the reason why that vision is so compelling is that they're bringing together environmentalists, they're bringing together labor and industry, who, by the way, is a major component of this. If we're thinking about the future of environmental activism and we don't think that labor is a part of it, it's probably not the future of environmental activism and economy. And so they're bringing all of these major components together with industry to say, here's where we are and here's where we would like to go. It's a beautiful tapestry and it's an amazing vision that they're able to tell so well. I'm probably one of their biggest fans on this side, as I keep saying, of the Susquehanna, but it's so important that we do the same thing. We need to understand as a community, not just that we can no longer just be those who are impacted by environmental decisions. We have to take ownership of it, and we have to then begin to paint the vision of how do we build a Black economy, a brown economy, a BIPOC economy that is taking advantage of and playing in our environmental future with jobs, with investment, with housing, with our children, with food that we can all both grow, eat, and sustain ourselves in a healthier way. So we're understanding just, they call it those comorbidities or just the social components and the social elements of our health and overall quality. That's where we need to get to. If I can help elevate that conversation, if I can find those people, and you've gotten many of them, so it's a joy for me to be able to connect with you on a regular, because I get to understand them more through you. But that's the vision, that's the work, and you're doing a great job, and I'm happy to just be able to play a part.
Well, I got you for a couple more minutes, Representative. Once again, we're talking with State Representative Napoleon Nelson, representing the 154th District, Legislative District in Pennsylvania, pahouse.com/Nelson for more. All these dollars that are coming in, the federal dollars, we got the pandemic relief dollars. We have, we're hoping for infrastructure dollars. There's been a lot of money. There's billions of dollars being thrown at the Philly region. How are we keeping track of that money also to make sure that, especially a lot of it is being dedicated for workforce development, infrastructure issues, even some of the pandemic relief money that already has been passed or approved? How are you all in the legislature, how are you all in the Legislative Black Caucus, members like you, making sure that that money is going to the communities that need it the most?
Sure. So there are a couple of different ways. One is certainly some of those dollars actually are being distributed direct to the city of Philadelphia. Right? Because it's so large, some of those dollars just are kind of a direct appropriation. There are some dollars, most of that we do appropriate out of the state legislature. And so we are making sure that when there are discretionary decisions that we are making, that the Legislative Black Caucus is all over advocating for it. I'll call it an equitable distribution, not an equal distribution, an equitable distribution of those funds. And it's not just the relief dollars, but we're focusing on an equitable distribution of kind of budget investment as well, because there is an awful lot of money coming in, you're right. And I do believe that some of the dollars that are going to come out of Washington from an infrastructure bill, I don't know if it's going to be $2 trillion or if it's going to be $1 trillion, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be something coming out of Washington because we voted and we've got some folks in Washington who are interested in passing this legislation. What we need to make sure we do locally is, I'd say, call your state rep, call your state senator, call your congressperson, but also make sure that you talk to your principal at your high school or your middle school, your elementary school. Make sure that you talk to your community center lead or your senior center lead and director, because they will be able to also talk to their state rep, their state senator, their congressperson, right? Talk to your pastor, your imam, whoever it may be who's helping to provide not just support for you as an individual, as a radio listener, but who is also helping to provide a little bit more of a lens to our electeds to say, I listen to and I hear from our constituents, our students, our parents, our PTO organizations on a regular basis, and they want to make sure that we have a jungle gym that works. They want to make sure that we're opening our community pools and our rec centers, because we can't continue to just take those resources out of our communities and rob our young people of that space to get outside, play, breathe, especially after we've been kind of held up inside or running around with these masks on, saving our lives for the past, end up being 18 months. We're going to need to breathe.
Right.
And when you've got your shot and you can get outside and it's a little bit cold today on this Earth Day, but tomorrow you can catch up on some of the plantings and cleanings that you meant to do today.
Right.
Get outside, breathe, and make sure that we're breathing the air that we're supposed to have.
That's right.
Make sure we're breathing the air that God intended for us.
I have to end it right there, Representative, but always good to see you. State Representative Napoleon Nelson. He is in the 154th Legislative District, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, representing that. PAhouse.com/Rep Nelson. And he's been joining us here during our EcoWord session, our special broadcast here on WURD. Representative, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'll be talking with you again.
Pleasure always.
All right. Let's take care. Be safe out there. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back here on EcoWord. It's our special Fight for Our Space Earth Day coverage, our Earth Day conversation here on WURD. I'm Charles Ellison, and we'll be back.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Obama. Barack and I are so thrilled that we got our COVID-19 vaccine, because this is a deadly disease, and this vaccine will protect us from getting really sick. Getting vaccinated is safe, and it could save your life and allow us to start getting back to seeing friends and family again. We can do this. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Spring forward to throwback. All this month, when you start or renew your WURD membership, you'll get exclusive WURD throwback swag, vintage backpacks, books, and tees, while supplies last. Offer ends April 30th. Sow seeds into Black Talk Media and grow with us. Visit wordradio.com/join now to start or renew today.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use my car concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
If you're feeling down or feeling blue and want someone to help you process it all, let's talk with Yolanda. She's not only a social media motivational speaker, she's a psychotherapist by trade and certified in prolonged exposure therapy for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. If you need counseling or seeking a life coach, contact Yolanda Novoa, 267-574-4632. Let's talk with Yolanda. She can be seen on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey WURD family, have you heard of the new Go to Know campaign? If not, here is the deal. WURD Radio has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Penn Medicine, LabCorp, and the Independence Blue Cross Foundation to present the Go to Know Fit Kit Screening Campaign. The Go to Know campaign is an at-home screening test for colon cancer. Yup, you heard me right. You can take your own stool sample and mail it back for testing. Did you know colon cancer, if caught early, is 100% preventable? African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. Plus, it is recommended you get screened if you are 45 years of age or older. So for the next 6 months, you can go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. It's that simple. Again, just go to wordradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and request your free at-home screening test. That's it. Go to Know today.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
Stare at him at night and think of schemes. I stay with her each night, but you're in my dreams. You're telling him that you're going out just to meet some friends. I wonder if this great charade will ever, ever end. We're just a midnight love affair. We get together and go nowhere. I really like to tell the world we care, but we're just another late night love affair.
All right. Welcome back to our EcoWord segment. I haven't heard that song in a long time. Welcome back to EcoWord Special Earth Day live broadcast here on WURD. I'm Charles Ellison. Thank you everyone for listening and for tuning in and have some great insightful discussions. And it's just like what Zuleen Mayfield was saying earlier, like we don't celebrate Earth Day. Earth Day is a very serious day for us and a day to rethink some things and to also start to mobilize on a number of these issues. I want to thank once again Keystone First and PICO for making this all possible today. And we'll continue to do so at hashtag EcoWord, hashtag EcoWord for more there to learn more about, also ecoword.com to learn more about our environmental justice journalism initiative where we talk about these issues regularly and especially on programs like Reality Check on WURD. Joining me now is Nicole Keels Magruder, founder and president of Community Community Hero. And so go to communityhero.org for more there. Also has, and I'm not sure if you still are, Nicole, but I know you're state political director for the NAACP
yes,
Pennsylvania.
Yes, my sound is a little low.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yeah, just a little low.
A little low? Okay, okay.
All right.
I'll keep talking. Okay, that's better?
Okay.
All right, excellent, excellent. So talk to us about Community Hero, because that's a fairly new organization. You also put together, and I participated in, the Black Health Matters PA conference, which just happened about a few weeks ago. Fantastic conference. You unpacked quite a bit there, but talk about Community Hero and then talk about how Black Health Matters came together.
Sure. So thank you again for having me on today, Charles, and happy Earth Day to you. And want to say happy birthday to my son Aeneas. He's 20 years old today. But yes, yes. So as Charles mentioned, I am the executive director of Community Hero Action Group. I've been a community advocate probably for over a decade. And most recently, I was the NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference Political Action Chair up until about 3 weeks before the last election. And then I turned my focus towards local communities, especially in Montgomery County. So Community Hero focused primarily on making sure that our community understood voting and demystified all the voting options that were out there. Right. And so we weren't telling people what to do, but just to make sure they voted. So whether or not it was mail-in ballot or registering in person didn't matter, just that we vote. So we explained things in a way in which folks can understand through online forums, social media campaigns, pop-up rallies, and we actually led an initiative called Vote Today Monco, which was an awareness campaign of voting options that went all the way up to the election day. And Montgomery County actually had the largest turnout in the state, so I'd like to think that we played a part in that. But what I learned from my work across the state was that there was a clear void and disconnect between very well-meaning, hardworking activists and community members. So Community Hero kind of stepped in to fill that void and bridge those partnerships. And our goal was to be responsive and provide our community with education in a digestible manner. So we leave all the egos and laurels at the door. And so we've been able to move forward and still work with legacy organizations like our local NAACPs, but also grassroots organizations such as Grown, which supports returning citizens. So we've been able to start this year off strong. And we had our first conference, just as you just mentioned, our first
Black
annual
Health Matters PA.
Yeah.
And you know, how were you able to, because you weaved quite a few issues, about public health, about the environment, all into one. And that's one of the, sorts of challenges, that we've been grappling with, throughout this broadcast, throughout this day, is just, figuring out ways like how you do with Community Hero, like, very user-friendly, accessible ways to make those conversations surrounding public health and the environment relevant. But also like priority, right? Mm-hmm. And you were able to do that with that Black Health Matters conference.
Absolutely. What we did is we made sure that all the topics that I believe are somehow related to priorities that exist within the community. So we talked about the chronic diseases that afflict the African American community and how they're connected to our environment. We talked about Alzheimer's. We talked about the mental health issues that our community is undergoing right now. So we took those topics that are kind of like the hot topics that we hear about right now and just placed them in a format which we thought would be engaging, and made sure that we had trusted messengers from the community. So I see you just had Representative Napoleon Nelson on. So we had, members of the Black Legislative Caucus on talking about Black health policy within the state. We had the Alzheimer's organization on. We had U.S. Senator Bob Casey. We had the Secretary of Aging, Bob Torres, on. So we had all of these experts and clinicians, and I think even more importantly, we had individuals of color that are experts in their area provide us with that information. And they were very instrumental in also designing the program formatting to make sure that it resonated with our audience.
And you and I have had this conversation before offline about like, how do we prioritize like environmental issues? And I was having this conversation pressing Representative Nelson on this too. Like, how do we intersect, how do we reframe this in such a way where, because he was saying, it's a challenge for him, like even his own constituents, they don't consider in their minds, like environment is not a #1 issue, but it can be, it should be when you reframe it you reframe and totally like upend the way we typically think of the environment. We typically think, oh, when it's the environment thing, it's like, oh, let's plant more trees, or let's clean the water. Yeah, those things. Of course, we need to do those things. But then, right, Nicole, when it intersects with those other community issues, like when Black Health Matters conference, like I had to moderate the panel on food, on nutrition. And then so we get into a conversation about, lack of like access to grocery stores and solid food in our communities. That's a big problem. Well, it's not just a simple problem of diet. There's a larger, bigger kind of environmental issue that deals with food deserts and food security, insecurity, waste, et cetera. It all starts to intersect and make sense.
Absolutely. You touched on a lot of what I was going to speak about. Yeah, we have to talk about the fact that, number one, we need to dispel the myth that environmental justice is like melting ice caps and deforestation, and right, that's environmental justice. So right, we have to keep in mind that our environment is our space, where we live, our communities, our schools, our blocks. That is what our environment is. So if we focus on things like that and look at the interconnectedness of how that impacts our health, specifically, you just mentioned about food deserts. And, right now we know in a lot of Black communities, it is so much easier to go and grab an orange hug and a bag of hot chips than it is to find a salad, right? And so why is that? I lived in California for a period of time, and it was the first time in my life where I was introduced to the notion that communities actually ban fast food restaurants. So you see a community that is obviously very well respected, can advocate well for themselves, and their public officials listened. And so guess what? They had healthy options. But when you don't have those things in place, then you have a community of fast food restaurants with low cost, nutritionally void fast food on every single corner. That affects our health. And I don't want to oversimplify things or make it seem like it's our fault, because if you look at the intersectedness of the jobs that we have, and the fact that a lot of times Black households are working 2 and 3 jobs. So guess what? Fast food sometimes is that go-to option, because time and money are a premium. So you can't really separate one without looking at all these other factors that impact our environmental health and impact environmental justice.
And one of the things that intrigues me about the work that you do, Nicole, like you're right at that intersection of the grass tops and the grassroots. And so how do we encourage like not just better conversations, but better collaboration, better synergy between the grass tops, like, the influencers, the policymakers, the folks who are, helping determine and make a lot of those decisions. Because at the end of the day, we need our advocacy and our protests and our demands to translate into actual policy and law, so then we can permanently protect our spaces. But how do we, I do find, especially in the Philadelphia area and everywhere really, for that matter, and really I find that like in every Black community, there is this disconnect, and it's growing, between the grass tops and the grassroots, like, and those two kind of groups and segments of the population, they need to be collaborating and finding synergy and making sure that this kind of conversation is translating into some kind of real change.
You're absolutely right. And what I think is, I think there are different types of organizations that are going to resonate with different audiences, and I've learned that. Yeah. So I know with Community Hero, I found those groups whose mission, number one, is similar to mine, so that there is no competition or vying for, being that front person. I think that's number one, is we have to eliminate some of those, the egos that I think exist a lot within our community. Let's just be honest. Yeah. And think about, okay, what is it that we're all trying to accomplish, and creating those spaces where we all have that voice and we can all come together. You were a part of that forum with the Environmental Justice Forum that we had. And we had all of these leaders, these Black leaders that were these environmental pioneers in the community, all together the power of them actually being able to come together and having these community think tanks within our community, so we understand what it means to go green. How does it really impact our community? I think it's so very important that because we've been away from the table for so long and we generally are not a part of this conversation, that we need to be educated as a community. So it's important to bring these trusted messengers in to have these ongoing discussions, not one off. I love what you're doing today, you know, having this segment dedicated solely to this. And then after, you know, you do your piece, other folks need to keep this conversation, you know, going. We need to talk about it in the community to make sure that it stays top of mind and that it's really addressed in a meaningful way. And not just on Earth Day.
And you know what, and going beyond that too, you know, we need that recognition, that awareness around environmental justice issues, but then we need to make sure that this translates into environmental economics, as I've been calling it, right? You know, making sure that our people, if we're in the front line of being disproportionately impacted by these calamities, these catastrophes, well, you know, as the clean energy sector, for example, or the economy around the solutions to those crises start to evolve, we need to be a part of that. How does that happen? How do you think, what do you see happening? And like, especially when you're looking at our community, how we plug more into that?
Right. So that's a very hot topic right now. There's a ton of money being dumped into this sector. Right. I think the last report I read, there was like $2 trillion that was being committed to clean energy. So we have all these private investors and companies that are doubling down. So we have to become educated as a community to understand where we fit in. No one's going to come and kind of just like put on a silver platter for us. Right. So we have to, number one, become educated. We have to, you know, go after these, you know, these green jobs. We have to be advocates in our community. We have to talk to our representatives and officials to let them know what we need in our community. And so we have to remain very, very vocal. And something, I was having this discussion with someone the other day, and even things like looking at ETFs, which I'm not giving stock advice, but if you look at kind of like the growth and which ones are performing better, you can actually kind of get a little glimpse as to a hint of where potential jobs and opportunities might be. So we have to, number one, I said, educate ourselves. And also we have to make sure that we're not used by other organizations, because we tend to have great ideas and we have plans for what needs to be done in the community, but they're not funded. But we have outside organizations that will come in and leverage their relationship with us, although we really don't have a space at the table, but because they leverage this relationship with us, they're able to attract more funding. So when we have these relationships that we've created with these larger organizations that will come in from outside of our community, we not only need to have a sit-down conversation, but we need to demand to be equitable partners in discussions and as well as funding, so that the projects that need to get actually get funded.
That's right. That's right. We need to do more of that. Don't, you know, definitely let people recognize our value. So I've had to do that as of recent. You know, I'm like, nah, it's like, you know, Black Lives Matter. You know, people, you know, want to tap into your expertise or your pride, you know, because you have a special connection, a unique connection to a community that they're trying to, you know, scope in on, and then they want that kind of expertise and that kind of work and energy for free. And it's like, no, it's like, that's part of the reason why we're where we are right now, is because, you know, folks refuse to make those investments. There's no parity. That's another conversation, Nicole. I'll bring you in on that one at another time. We ran out of time. Nicole Kills Magruder of Community Hero Action Group, communityhero.org for more information to see what she's up to. And so I'll have her back on. She's joining, and also convener, founder of the first annual, which will be an annual, Black Health Matters PA, very important conference. I had a fantastic time. I was a keynote and also a moderator there. So I had to get her on to see how that went. Nicole, thanks for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on.
All right.
Have a good day.
Safe. You too. All right. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back here on WURD, our special Earth Day broadcast. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
What's up, Philly? It's sincerely Sarita. The world is inching back to normalcy, but our approach to educating our children may never be the same. Commonwealth Charter Academy, or CCA, has nearly 20 years of experience providing a flexible, stable, online education in the comfort of your home. Enroll today at ccaeducate.me.
Here are the benefits to your children and your family. Number 1, world-class education and accredited lesson plans streamed directly into your home at no cost to you. Number 2, laptops, headphones, and high-speed internet access, all provided at no cost to you. And number 3, a learning environment completely free from classroom risks like bullying and other distractions.
CCA has been in our community long before this health crisis and will continue to faithfully serve students and families well into the future. Join the more than 2,500 students from Philly who already attend CCA. Enroll now at ccaeducate.me.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium offers COVID-19 vaccines and COVID-19 testing at these locations. First come, first served. Saturday, April 24th and Sunday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Dell Music Center, 2400 Strawberry Mansion Drive. Monday, April 19th from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at SEPTA Suburban Station, 16th and JFK Boulevard. Monday, April 19th, Tuesday, April 20th, and Thursday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the Leah Cora Center, 1776 North Broad Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media.
All right, Janelle Elegum Ketchum is founder, CEO of Nutrition Unlimited. Go to nutritionunlimited.com for more information. She is a nutritionist, a registered certified nutritionist, and that's a very big discussion, very big topic that we don't explore enough, but it is a very important element to this Earth Day discussion, a special EcoWord broadcast that we're bringing to you here today. Janelle, how are you doing? See you.
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good. Talk, if you could, briefly, like, about being a nutritionist, what that's all about. Like, what is a nutritionist, and how have you seen, there's been a lot more emphasis on food and the nutrition space. Well, one, we've seen food diversify quite a bit over the past generation. And then two, there's been a heavier emphasis on nutrition. How have you seen that space evolve?
So I'll start first with just explaining a little bit about the background of being a registered dietitian, nutritionist. So for this field, we have to have a degree in dietetics and nutrition, at least a Bachelor of Science degree, and then we have to do an internship. And after that, then we are eligible to take a national exam and become registered nationwide. And in addition to that, in Pennsylvania, we also have to become licensed in the state. In many states, we also have to have an additional licensure. So I always like to talk about that a little bit because I think we sometimes get put into a category with other people that are considered nutritionists, where they just take maybe a course for a few months and then they can call themselves a nutritionist. So because we take a lot of different science classes, anatomy and physiology, we take a lot of biochemistry and other classes, and other sort of almost pre-med classes, we are able to really do medical nutrition therapy. So that means we are licensed and we have the capability to look at at their blood work and really help them to manage chronic illnesses. So I would say that's a big difference between us and other nutritionists. They don't have that licensure, and ideally shouldn't be giving people advice that have chronic illnesses, because that's kind of beyond their reach.
When we think about nutrition, you feel like everyone should have a nutritionist. Well, of course, I mean, I know that the answer to that, of course, yeah, everyone should have a nutritionist.
Yeah, so definitely.
Right, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So nutritionunlimitedrd.com. So, yeah, that's okay. So yes, I definitely. Yes, that's it. So I definitely think that everyone, ideally, at some time or another, should see a registered dietitian, because we don't only see people that have a chronic illness, but we can help with prevention of a chronic illness. And we don't just, focus just on weight and how, people look on the outside. We really focus in on how are you doing on the inside? What is your blood work like? What is your family history? Maybe you are at risk for certain chronic illnesses, and now everything looks great, but maybe 20 years down the line, you may not be looking as great on the inside, and your blood work may tell a different story. So we can really help people with helping them with prevention. And that's something, unfortunately, I know for my practice, I don't get to do as much. It's something that we would love to do more of. But a lot of times there's sort of a stigma with seeing a registered dietitian, where a lot of people think that, oh, only if I have a problem, that's when I should see them. I want to lose weight, then I should see one. I have high blood pressure or high cholesterol or diabetes, then I could see someone. Those are all great reasons, but we should also be thinking a lot about prevention. And the great thing about, especially in our current area, in our tri-state area, is that a lot of health insurance companies actually have that same mindset, and they have coverage for our services. So that's another way that we're a lot different to people that are just nutritionists. We can bill health insurance plans. So health insurance companies have recognized us as healthcare practitioners, and they have seen that what we do, there's research really showing that we can help with prevention and also help with intervention for a lot of chronic illnesses. And we can, help people in the long run from reducing hospitalizations, reducing medication use, and a lot of, different things like that. So a lot of times, many people can see it at no cost, no copay, no cost to them at all. I think that sometimes maybe people just don't know, about that service, even though it's covered with their health insurance plan, or maybe some people have that mindset thinking that, oh, I should only see someone if I have a problem.
Yeah. Talk, if you will, about, so we talk about, when we talk about diet, and then we talk about it in the context of issues like environmental justice, we have to be very careful when we have that conversation, because there are things that are outside of people's control that force them to make dietary decisions that otherwise they wouldn't make, right? And so it's tricky to have that conversation, because sometimes folks will tend to put the onus of, they're dealing with these quality of life issues because they're making bad dietary choices. But no, well, I would love to make better dietary choices, but I live in a food swamp. I live in a food desert. Like I don't have ready access, or I rely on mass transit. So I don't have a car to get to like the best grocery store, or to like, the whole paycheck place to go get the better, healthier food. I've got to deal with, maybe a store that's not as stocked or well equipped. A lot of the food's expiring. I've been redlined and gentrified into this food desert space. Talk a little bit about that.
So that is great topic. That's actually something that we see fairly often. Something that we really specialize with is really tying in our clients into the community and different community resources. So actually, luckily in Philadelphia, we have a lot of resources. And actually, I feel like we have a lot of food resources that people do not know about. Wow. So from things like community refrigerators, which really have done a lot through the pandemic, where pretty much the community donates food. They even have sometimes local farms that donate food and other things. So even in a community refrigerator, there may be things like, healthier options there, maybe some vegetables, maybe different beans and things like that, at no cost. They are all throughout the city. There are also other local farms. So for example, in Black-owned farms actually, that are doing a lot of great things for the community. So in North Philadelphia, they have a farm there that has been doing a whole lot. Urban Creators, they're in the heart of North Philadelphia. And so that's something that for our clients in that area, we tie them into a lot of the work they do. They give a lot of free produce that's grown right there in North Philadelphia. And they also provide things like free meals. Typically also more pre-pandemic, they also do activities and other things on site also. In West Philadelphia, we have another Black-owned farm that's doing a lot of great things, Sankofa Community Farm, and they offer very low-cost produce. They'll be starting up again, probably late spring into the summertime. And then, we have other farms like Farmer John. She is out in Elkins Park area. So we have different organizations like that that are really doing amazing things to really get out there in the community and not have those, big gaps with having access to healthy, fresh produce. A lot of them offer produce either at very low cost or no cost. There are other programs where community members can get free produce boxes on different days. And then we also have other programs where you can go to other farmers markets through the Food Trust. They have a wonderful program where if you use your access card, you get coupons back, like these food bucks. So every $5 you spend, you get $2 back, and you can use that on more produce. Use your access card there. So there are a lot of different things like that. And then, of course, we also work with people with, which grocery stores and other things that they have that are closer to them, and work with the foods that are accessible, and then see how, they can get maybe some staple items there. So for some people, it might be more canned goods. It may be more beans. It may be, looking at the meats that you're having, maybe having them ever so often.
Right.
And then tying in, some of the fresh produce with a lot of these different organizations. But what I've seen
I've got to stop you there too, Janelle. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. So we definitely bring you back. I'm going to bring you back for sure. So
all right. I'd love to come back.
Janelle Elegum Ketchum is a licensed nutritionist, also founder, CEO of Nutrition Unlimited, nutritionunlimitedrd.com for more information there. To get in touch with her. As she was saying, a lot of these services don't cost you anything at all to just talk to a nutrition, and it's very, as a saying, the old maxim, you are what you eat. So, it's very important that diet, that nutrition is very important. And a good parting thought as we end our EcoWord coverage, our special Earth Day coverage today. Thanks so much, Janelle. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Be safe and be well out there. I'm Charles Ellison. I've been your host, your anchor for just doing double duty. I was in City Council Live earlier this morning, and then we went straight into it. And EcoWord, the Fight for Our Space special Earth Day broadcast, because it is a fight. So let's continue that fight. Of course, when I return on Monday for a reality check, 10 a.m. sharp, God willing, we're going to continue that discussion like we do every day, talking about some element of the environment, some aspect of the space that we must fight for, that we're trying to live in, and we're just trying to thrive in. We're trying to tell people, just leave us alone. Just let us live. But we got a lot of work to do. So I hope that this program and the conversations that we curated today help guide you in that direction, help give you the strength to fight for our space. I'm Charles Ellison. Continue to go to #EcoWord, also ecoword.com. I want to thank Keystone First and Pico for making this broadcast very much possible. I want to thank all the listeners, and for some folks who called in as well, and all the guests. Janelle who's hanging in there with us to the very end. I want to thank Mike C on the Board of Steel as well. Really appreciate everyone staying tuned. So continue to stay tuned to WURD Radio, WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, also wordradio.com, and WURD TV and WURD app. Next coming up is Evening Words with Nick Talaferro. So he's coming up next here on WURD. Everyone have a great weekend. Stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please stay safe out there. Be well. I'll talk to you next week.